5 most useless mega projects in African history. When it comes to mega projects in Africa, it is no secret that the continent has seen and executed some very powerful projects. But quite frankly, because a project has been brought to light doesn't make it useful or relevant to the purpose to which it was initially meant for. In this video, we will discover 5 mega projects in Africa that resulted to nothing but waste of resources, money and time. While some of these projects have woefully failed, some are seriously struggling with legal issues, while others are trying to pick up steam, but more or less, all this show a clear sign of failure, or what some might say, useless. Before we jump into our countdown on the top 5 most useless projects in African history, make sure to smash that subscribe button if you're new here, and don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of our updates. Without any delay, let's get straight to it. Here are the top 5 most useless mega projects in African history so far, in no particular order. Number 5. The Chad-Cameroon Pipeline Project. The Chad Oil and Pipeline Project is a $3.7 billion worth development project comprising some 300 oil wells, which are or perhaps were expected to extract approximately 1 billion barrels of oil over 25 years. Located in Chad's southwestern region, it was one of Africa's largest public and private development projects. Once extracted, the oil was to be transported by a 640-mile underground pipeline through neighboring Cameroon to an offshore export loading facility. Construction began in October 2000 and the oil was expected to flow in 2004. The Chad-Cameroon Petroleum Development and Pipeline Project attracted worldwide attention not for the size of its oil reserves or the technical complexities of constructing a 1,070-kilometer pipeline from southern Chad to Cameroon's Atlantic coast, but for the elaborate World Bank-sponsored capacity building initiatives designed to better the seemingly damaging effects that oil production has had in other sub-Saharan African countries such as Angola, Equatorial Guinea, Nigeria, and Sudan. The project ran into trouble long before the oil started flowing in 2003 as construction activities rapidly outpaced the institutional capacity building initiatives designed to ensure that Chad actually used its forthcoming oil revenues for poverty alleviation. Throughout 2005 and 2006, as it dealt with a myriad of domestic and international political crises, the government of Chad also engaged in a series of disputes with both the World Bank and members. At the completion of this project, the revenues was rather used for purchasing arms and personal profits rather than the intended purpose to boost both countries' struggling economies. Also, with several companies and human rights sanctions related to oil hazards, this project definitely doomed. Number 4. President Mbutus Concorde Airport in the forest. President Mbutu's personal Xanadu was his birthday deep in the jungle of what is today a Democratic Republic of the Congo, the biggest country in sub-Saharan Africa and one of the world's poorest and longest suffering. In the early 1970s, Badolite was a remote village of 1,500 people living in mud brick huts and not even marked on maps, but thanks to unlimited hubris and riches, a new town was hacked out of the tropical rainforest, with houses, schools, hospitals, municipal buildings, a 5-star hotel, a 3,200-meter runway for the supersonic Concorde, and the Pièce de Résistance, 3 palaces of kleptocratic kitsch. There are no records of who built Mbutu's now bushed airport, but Concorde needs a runway of just over 3,000 meters, but Mbutu's airport has a runway of 3,200 meters, definitely very little room for error. An Air France Concorde, commissioned by Mbutu to take him and his staff shopping in Paris in the 1980s, had to land here in this forest airport. There wasn't much of a plan B either, to be quite honest. There were very few runways long enough to accommodate Concorde at the time. This is no doubt a useless project that was aimed for selfish reasons and clearly didn't serve the purpose for which it was intended. It was very unwise for President Mbutu to initiate such a project considering the very poor living conditions of his fellow countrymen. President Mbutu felt the need to make his hometown popular and known worldwide, and his thought was to construct a useless airport that didn't serve any purpose at all. Number 3. Kilamba City, Angola's Chinese-built ghost town. The ghost towns of China, Ireland and Spain, full of large empty houses, estates, may be a phenomenon that is on its own way to Africa. Built for people who never move in, they leave those who did a worthless property they cannot sell. Perched in an isolated spot some 30 kilometers outside Angola's capital, Luanda, Nova Cidade de Kilamba is a brand new mixed residential development of 758-story apartment buildings, a dozen schools and more than 100 retail units. Designed to house up to 500,000 people when complete, Kilamba has been built by the state-owned China International Trust and Investment Corporation in under 3 years at a reported cost of $3.5 billion. Spanning 5,000 hectares, the development is the largest of several new satellite cities being constructed by Chinese firms around Angola, and it is believed to be one of the largest new build projects on the continent. When you visit Kilamba, you cannot help but wonder if even a third of those buyers have moved in yet. The place is eerily quiet, voices bouncing off all the fresh concrete and wide open tarred roads. There are hardly any cars and even fewer people, but dozens of repetitive rows of multicolored apartment buildings, their shutters sealed and their balconies empty. Only a handful of the commercial units are occupied, mostly by utility companies, but there are no actual shops on site, and so, with the exception of a new hypermarket located at one entrance, there is nowhere to buy food. Number 2. Ghana's $200 million Sagleme housing project. The Sagleme housing project provides a case study in potential risks littering the path from public policy to investment projects. We see licensing risks from a lack of clarity on precise terms of the agreement, governance failings in the form of inadequate parliamentary oversight, and contract frustrations when project scope is changed alongside non-delivery of certain inputs by government. Importantly, while charges have been brought against 2 former ministers for willfully causing financial loss to the state, there are currently no allegations of bribery or embezzlement, for example, against government officials in connection with the project. The project saw its genesis in 2011 to 2012 under the regime of then-President John Evans Atta Mills, who, in realizing the need for significant investment in affordable housing, sought to contract a loan from Credit Suisse for $200 million to construct 5,000 affordable homes at Sagleme in the Greater Accra region. The contract was awarded to the Ghanaian subsidiary of a Brazilian firm, Construtora OAS Limited, and since then, only 668 units have been constructed, and with the project still incomplete, they remain uninhabited. Different members of the then ruling National Democratic Congress claimed that the initial loan agreement only covered 1,500 units, as the project was to be constructed in phases, while others assert that there was no mention of any phases. Both could be right, as the loan agreement that was agreed to by Parliament was for 5,000 homes and made no mention of construction in phases. However, the parliamentary approval for the project that was granted does mention 4 phases of construction. This project is one of Africa's biggest failures of all times, with no doubt. Number 1. Ivory Coast abandoned capital city with the biggest church in the world. If it's in the dictator handbook that you must leave behind an extravagantly unaffordable and unnecessary vanity project, then Ivory Coast President Felix Houphouët-Boigny has fulfilled that requirement. In the village turned capital of Yamoussoukro, the world's largest church stands towering above a loose sprawl of grazing cattle and ramshackle buildings. A copper cross gleams atop a massive dome, while underneath, a marble and granite plaza stretches over 7 acres and could fit a crowd of 300,000. But despite its $300 million price tag and 18,000-person indoor capacity, the out-of-place classical Greco-Roman structure has remained mostly empty for the past 25 years. There you have it, explorers, Africa's most useless projects of all times. If you enjoyed this video, do well to give us a thumbs up, and don't forget to leave a comment and let us know what you think about these very unfruitful mega projects. And also, don't forget to share with a friend.